Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 45. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Friday show. Dave, don't want to make this the headline story of a Steelers podcast, but Odell Beckham Jr., no longer a member of the Cleveland Browns, officially released by the team today. He'll be subject to waivers, eligible to be claimed by any single team. So the Odell Beckham Jr. era, or error, maybe coming to an end in Cleveland.
Yeah, look, I don't think overly surprising, but boy, that thing kind of the end of that sure did escalate quickly after the game. I guess the Steelers broke the Browns a little bit to some degree here. I tell you, I know the Steelers took a lot of criticism both from their own fan base and from outsiders to the way the thing with Antonio Brown went down several years ago. Now the timing of that was a little bit different. It was the end of the season, so they had a lot of time to make a decision on that, and obviously ended up parting ways with Antonio Brown due to mostly his shenanigans there. But the Steelers did at least get. They had a lot of dead money in that, but at least they got something in return. And really, I guess you could say notably what Deontay Johnson and Zach Gentry, if you want to be kind of, specific about it there. But once again, they did have to eat some dead money as part of that there. What are the Browns going to get for Odell Beckham Jr. other than just out of their hair there? It sounds like what they're going to do with his contract. Oh, by the way, happy Friday. Sounds like they're going to lower, basically do a restructure on him just to move him, and then to help with the kind of the cap situation there, and then he's going to end up being a pretty cheap rental, I would imagine, for the rest of the season here once he gets to waivers there. So some team will probably claim him off of waivers if indeed they lower that, restructure that 2021 salary of his and lower it down to minimum. But in the process, that ends up with the Browns having to eat up pretty nice chunk of dead money there. Obviously not close to what the Steelers ate with Antonio Brown, but you would think they would have liked to try to move that guy and at least get something for him.
Yeah, a lot of egg on their face as well, and we can safely assume, right, the Steelers, we do not anticipate any sort of interest in a waiver claim or otherwise from them. And I hope at least that's fair to assume.
Yeah, I mean, stranger things, I guess, have happened, but I would be shocked if you want to try to bring that guy in the building, regardless of the salary cost associated with him. I think somewhere like the Saints or the Raiders is more than likely where he ends up anywhere. I would be surprised if the Steelers put in a waiver claim on him.
Me too. For a guy who clearly wants the football and a Steelers offense trying to run the football more that isn't really producing any gaudy numbers overall for any of the receivers outside of maybe Deontay Johnson, who gets more volume but doesn't necessarily get huge numbers overall, not AB type numbers, probably not a good fit there. And so, yeah, I'd be shocked if there was any sort of interest. And I imagine some team even ahead of Pittsburgh in the waiver order probably claims the guy anyway. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, interesting saga. And now he's no longer a member of the Browns. All right, Dave here. I don't know why I said Dave here. That's a weird old-timey way to phrase that. We do want to mention here we'll have a beat writer a little bit later on the show. We did not have one on Wednesday. We wanted to save it for Friday because of the Monday night game against Chicago. We'll have Eric Edholm on the show to talk Chicago. He covers the Bears, also writes for Yahoo Sports and covers the draft and NFL. So a really good conversation with him. Just a quick programming note while we're at it for next week. Normally, obviously, do the podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday because of the Bears game on Monday night. We'll do a podcast Monday like usual. And then we'll do one Tuesday morning, and then we'll have one on Friday. So it'll go Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Neither of us wanted to wait until Wednesday to recap the Monday night game. So just a note there as well. Dave, let's start things off here with the Steelers and their injury report. Yesterday, they were in pretty good shape yesterday. Eric Ebron, though, did not practice on Thursday. Chris Boswell limited as he goes through concussion protocol, but the fact he was limited, a good sign for him working through protocol and hopefully exiting it before Monday's game. Also limited in practice was Ben with that hip injury, BJ Finney with a back, and Cam Hayward with an ankle. But overall, Ebron aside, this team pretty healthy right now.
Yeah, and you have to like that. I was expecting Chris Boswell to have the old do not practice next to him here. It's still kind of probably being part of that concussion protocol and all. But him being listed as limited is a little bit of a positive there. We'll obviously see how that transitions into Friday and Saturday with him and Eric Ebron with that hamstring. I know Mike Tomlin talked on Tuesday about just getting done talking to him, being in the pool. At this point right now, does it matter whether or not this team has Eric Ebron on Monday night against the Bears? I would say really it's become kind of, Ebron's become mostly kind of an afterthought right now. Now, obviously, you want healthy Eric Ebron is better than a not healthy Ebron. So I would assume that they're going to probably take it slow with him right now. Today, obviously, a big day after coming off of a do not practice. If he doesn't practice today, then I don't see any way for him to play on Monday night against the Bears there. The rest of the guy, obviously the big name will be Boswell to see what transitions with him on Friday and Saturday. This team signed Josh Lambo, and they have him waiting in reserves if they need him, barring something else popping up from, the growing club of Pittsburgh, I guess, on Friday or Saturday. This team looks to be very healthy overall, and you would obviously like to have Boswell kicking at Heinz Field Monday night, but I guess worse things have happened if that isn't the case. So Friday and Saturday, the two names at least right now to watch are Eric Ebron and Chris Boswell.
Yep, and so we'll see what the report looks like today. Will there be the final report on Saturday? Everything just gets pushed back a day? Okay, so yeah, yesterday was the first report because of the Monday night game, so we'll get one today, and then the final one on Saturday. Dave, let's talk about the coordinators. They spoke yesterday.
Real quick, sure. Looking at what the Bears have got going on, we'll talk a little bit more with Eric Edholm about this situation, later in this show there. But three huge names to watch with them. Khalil Mack, obviously headlining that thing with a foot injury, did not practice on Thursday. Going to be interested to see how that plays out for him. I mean, this is a premier pass rusher in the NFL, and them not having him on Monday night against the Steelers, they obviously did not have him against the 49ers this past week. That would be huge. And while they have 6 players that did not practice on Thursday for them, the other two notable besides Mack are Alec Ogletree, inside linebacker, and safety Eddie Jackson as well too. So they are a banged up bunch, and it's going to be interesting to watch how the Khalil Mack situation plays out for them these next 2 days.
Absolutely. Speaking of Khalil Mack, the coordinator spoke yesterday, and OC Matt Canada was asked about Khalil Mack and how different they are without him, and said obviously there's a big difference when Mack's not out there. So Canada, as I call him, the Canada bought 3000, spitting out just the cliches and phrases, which is all well and good. It's fine. He doesn't certainly have to give you anything worth talking about, and he does not. So I mean, I don't know what you saw from Canada yesterday that's worth mentioning here. They talked about short yardage and the improvements there, and that's been a real heavy emphasis, and certainly seen big improvements there after this team was just abysmal, league worst in 2019, 2020, and third and fourth and short. So they've definitely made strides there overall, which was really critical for them to do.
Boy, weekly it's Matt Canada press conference doesn't have a lot of information. It was really low on the level of information there, and the fact that it was still 10 minutes in length still.
Yeah, there's a lot of words. There's just not a lot of them worth talking about.
10 minutes of nothing overall, and was asked pretty much how's the offense improved, and he says the same things. We're still not where we want to be, that, and the other, but I mean, he really didn't say a lot, period.
Yeah, I did talk about Najee Harris and said, quote, "We think he's a total package back. We've said that from day one to pinpoint one. I think he's running the ball. I don't want to say better, but he's realizing how challenging it is to get a 4-yard run. It is a big deal at this level. I think his pass protection has improved. He was really big on the touchdown pass, and I know we talked about that, and Ben talked about it, and we had a couple of clips of that about that 4th and goal play to Freiermuth and how Harris really made that play happen because Dan Moore got beat on that play, and Harris kind of put his face in the fan against Myles Garrett and stood him up just long enough for Ben to get the pass off. So kudos to Ben for motioning Harris to that side to begin with, but then B, Harris making the play and picking up Garrett there. And so what he's done in Passport, I think he's made strides there, and just that competitive zeal that when you think about backs on backers back in training camp, how, Harris was not perfect in backs on backers. He took his lumps, but he was always competitive and willing and wanting to get that next rep. And so when you go against Myles Garrett, you got to be just willing because you're not going to win that rep. You just have to slow him down enough. And Harris did on that play. So that was one of those really underrated, crucial plays that may have won Pittsburgh the game.
Is there any kind of question that you could come up with off the top of your head that you would ask Matt Canada that would at least elicit some sort of worth talking about response?
Oh man, I kind of think about that sometimes. I think it's hard to
like a Bill. It had to be like a one of those questions that they get to Bill Belichick every once in a while that gets him. But even Matt's kind of not one to talk about either A, history of the NFL or B, schematics.
Right. I mean, he doesn't have the history of the NFL. He's so new to the NFL, so he doesn't get to speak to that perspective the way Belichick does. I think maybe you're right. He might have something just broader about the game because you start getting specific about a player. He just kind of says some really cliche type stuff. So that's a tough nut to crack.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there really is. I'm looking at transcript again now and obviously listened to it twice yesterday. There's not much there to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah. So let's talk about let's talk about Keith Butler because there's always some good Keith Butler nuggets in there. And I'm trying to think about some of the most important things that he discussed. Had some interesting comments, I think, about Melvin Ingram, right? And just kind of talking about that situation and just kind of honestly saying, I think the quote was, we all think we're better than we think we are, or whatever the exact quote was there. And just some interesting commentary about Ingram. Not that he was taking a shot at him, but just kind of explaining the situation and then talking about next man up, talk about Charlton and Derek Tuska and how those guys have impressed, Charlton especially, and kind of getting comfortable, but still room to grow for him after his first game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I know it can easily be framed what he said about Melvin Ingram as a shot, but I mean that's kind of Keith Butler, I think, being Keith Butler type of response. I mean, if he had, and I think Butler in so many words made it clear, if he had his druthers, they wish they could have kept Melvin Ingram there. This defense, I think, depth-wise, is a better defense with Melvin Ingram than without him, though. But once again, the way it came out of Keith Butler's mouth, it's going to be kind of framed as a shot there. I guess you could say the same thing about Mike Tomlin the other day, re-releasing the volunteers, not hostages kind of quote there. So that's, I think until we get closer to the Week 16 game against the Chiefs now, there's probably not going to be many more questions about that. Asked about Taco Charlton, and Taco only played 10 snaps, and I thought Jonathan Hightrader did a good job of reviewing most of those in a post the other day there. He says he has things to do in terms of the passing game there, that he's got to understand that he is an outside linebacker, and you have to do outside linebacker things, not defensive things all the time. Now, overall, I don't think Taco was asked to do too much over in coverage. Did you see anything? I mean, you had that real noticeable drop of his in the coverage. I thought he did an okay job of trying to get himself into a sight line there in his own drop. I didn't see anything that stuck out there. But I did notice that for whatever it's worth, PFF gave Taco like a 40-something, 41 grade when it came to coverage. But once again, I think
that's one snap. I think he dropped in the coverage once.
Okay, well then if that's that, then I don't see how you get a 41 grade.
Yeah, it was like a hook zone he just dropped into, right?
Yeah, grade into that. Unless where I was going is, did I miss anything else with Taco in coverage, and why specifically? Is that something that Keith Butler is mentioning? Did you see anything on tape that would get Keith to say, got to work on him more in terms of the passing game?
Yeah, I don't know about it being on tape. I'm sure there's stuff in practice. I mean, the challenge for Taco is that he's a tall, long guy, and usually those guys don't drop into coverage. I mean, what's his size? I mean, he's like
Like
I don't know.
6'6", and he's
Yeah, 6'6". I mean, he's like a power forward. I don't know what his weight's at. It's probably come up and down a little bit, so it's hard to gauge. But let's just call him 6'6". I don't know, 250, 260, somewhere around there. And so long, leggy kind of dude. And usually going backwards might be a challenge for those guys flipping hips and stuff like that. He just hasn't gone backwards a lot in his career anyway. He was a end in Dallas. He was a rusher in college at Michigan. Is primarily in that role with Miami and Kansas City. So I think just naturally, anytime you bring a new guy into your system who doesn't have a lot of experience dropping, no matter what their body type is, they have to learn that. And certainly when you're a different body type like Taco Charlton, when you're a bigger, longer dude, you got to kind of learn that role. So I think it was probably more of a general statement to any guy in that situation, and maybe a little more specifically to Charlton, just because of his background and his size overall.
And look, I mean, it's not entirely foreign to him right now. I mean, obviously coming out of Michigan, he was more of a go forward guy, but he has played in enough systems where he's been asked to play on his feet before and do some of these coverage things. It still might not be a strong part to his game, but I tell you, when it comes to overall athleticism, I mean, he might be the most athletic. I don't know. Highsmith's right there. As far as playing on his feet and moving the other direction, you do kind of cringe when you see TJ do it.
Yeah.
Bless his heart, because I mean that's not what he's designed to do. I mean, I would argue that Taco the most athletic outside linebacker on the 53 right now.
I mean, from a pure coverage standpoint, or
right. I
mean,
not moving forward.
Yeah. In terms of going backward, I don't know. I'd probably still give the edge to Highsmith. I mean, I need to see more from Charlton. I mean, again, I'm going off of one snap of him in coverage so far, but I'd probably still give the edge to Alex Highsmith in terms of who's the best coverage edge guy.
How concerned are you right now about past the top two in Highsmith and Watt? Because look, you cannot play those guys 90% of snaps game in and game out. You just can't. And
they might try.
They might try, but I mean, sooner or later, it's not advisable, and I think they know that. And it's not going to be all Taco. I think you're still going to have that handful of 5. Derek Tuska snaps a game and all like that. How concerned are you when either one or both of those two backups are on the field right now? And I mean, look, It went okay the other day now. But I mean, obviously, I think a lot of that's going to be predicated on, making sure you keep the opposing quarterback behind the chains like they were able to do in that Browns game for most of the game as well, too. What is the drop off from Ingram to a guy like Charlton?
There is drop-off for sure. There's a heightened level of concern there. Ingram was such a good fit. He could play either side, was solid against the run. He was comfortable playing off ball, good in some of the blitz packages, had that great spin move, could win against guards and tackles alike. And so there is a drop-off there. Make no mistake. I'm not going to pretend that it's anything, otherwise. But, I mean, I thought Charlton played 10 good snaps. He was comfortable. He moved around. I thought he looked good overall. He used his hands well and was around the football a decent amount. As we talked about, kind of in that sack mix that Wormley was credited for, and was kind of in the area of the forced fumble. Maybe forced it. I still don't think he did, but he was in the area. He ran to the football overall. So we'll see. We'll have to learn more about him, but hopefully less of a drop-off than I feared whenever we kind of realized that Ingram was no longer going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I mean, at the beginning of in training camp, at no point did I think we were talking. It just goes to show you how these things go sometimes. Here we are talking about meaningful snaps for Taco Charlton, who wasn't even with the team, and it just goes to show you some of the things that you talk about. We're talking about Jameer Jones and what was his role going to be with his team, and in fact, Derek Tuska wasn't even with the team. But we did say at the time that this team had heading a month ahead of training camp, talking about, boy, this team's got to get some depth at the outside linebacker position. And at the time we were the Cassius Marshes of the world, who, by the way, is now with the Bears, right? So that's an interesting kind of development what they call that, gamemanship, I guess, if you will, when it comes to that move there. But, we were talking about Cassius Marsh and how there's no way this team could go into the season with him as a number 3 outside linebacker. They obviously didn't. They thought they had fixed that problem with Ingram. But now you turn around, and here we are talking about Taco Charlton and Derek Tuska, which, we weren't obviously talking about a month ahead of training camp starting.
Yeah, how quickly some of those conversations expire. I mean, even just at the end of the summer before week 1, it was Melvin Ingram was locked in. Then it was a battle between, as you mentioned, Jameer Jones, Cassius Marsh, and Quincy Roche. And now all 4 of those guys are gone. and they're all in different places. Marsh in Chicago, Roche with the Giants. He's playing some snaps for them. I think Jameer's still with the Rams and Ingram with the Chiefs. So, yeah, I mean, the room can look different in an instant. So, I mean, that's just how things go. But, again, there was a drop-off there.
Life moves fast, right?
It really does. And so, there was a drop-off there from Ingram. There's no arguing that. But I think Charlton gave you some level of confidence. And I think that's one reason why this team ultimately dealt Ingram away.
I guess the other part, positive things out of the mouth from Keith Butler about Isaiah Loudermilk. And we already talked about how he talked a little bit about Taco Charlton, some of the things that he has to work on there. Really, the rest of his conversation was dominated about the mobility, I guess, of Justin Fields and how this team is going to handle him. Now, I know you haven't probably gotten deep into the Bears tape yet. I spent some time, about an hour and a half last night, rolling through some all 22 on the Bears. One of the big narratives, I guess, coming out of that game against the 49ers was Fields and his ability to use his legs. However, only 2 design runs. There are a lot of scrambles in there as well. And I guess the big talk is, how do you defend Justin Fields on a designed aspect of it versus off-script stuff. And to me, at least, Alex, I think you're going to see some more designed stuff with Justin Fields this week against this Steelers defense, which, let's face it, hasn't had the best of luck sometimes against quarterbacks that have the mobility factor to them. They obviously got to bypass Russell Wilson, a couple of games ago because him being injured and all. And first thing I was thinking about when Keith Butler was asked about how do you kind of go about hitting a guy like Justin Fields was kind of that mesh charge that you've talked about and written about and talked about quite a few times, especially when the Steelers play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Is that kind of the stuff that you kind of, I mean, he obviously didn't term it that way, but is that the way you kind of envision Butler making sure they kind of get hits on Justin Fields on Monday night?
Well, it's tough. And yeah, the question and the answer here was, how much of the stuff you used before against Lamar involved post fakes and hitting him when you can? And Butler's response was, quote, "We hit him. We're going to keep doing stuff. We want the threat of that hit all the time. Make those guys understand that if they're going to run the ball, they're a running back. I hope the referees understand that too." What's tougher though with Chicago is, like you said, they don't run this stuff that often. I mean, with the Ravens and Lamar, they're going to run mesh plays and read options and stuff like that. With Chicago, they might not run it. And so are you going to practice all week on that stuff for them to maybe not run it at all Sunday, or run it, or Monday, I should say, or run it once or twice? So it's a different calculation there, because do you want to spend that time and energy on something you might not see or rarely see when you play the game? So it'll be interesting for sure. But you're right. It is another equation, another gap to fill, another guy to account for when you have a mobile quarterback. And so when you're not 100% sure what the Bears' plan is going to be, I think it's hard to really dedicate time to using the mesh charge, because you don't know if it's going to really be something you end up using much, if at all, in the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, Fields obviously sticks out with his mobility in that 49ers game. But that said, do you really want – I mean, this is a kid that's taken a lot of hits already, right? And hasn't even played every game for them. And don't they doesn't he lead the NFL in sacks taken, or –
Yeah, he's got, I think, 31 of them through his 6 starts, and he's only played 6 of the 8 games, or started 6 of the 8 games. So, I mean, he's got some like almost David Carr numbers of sacks, which is, it's just horrible. We talked with Eric about that. So, yeah, the mobility is a threat for sure. But as you said, it's mostly like just off script, just running around, scrambling. That 4th and 1 play he had was him just making it up on his own. And so you can't plan for that. Obviously, that's something like you don't practice really against.
All right. Anything else from Keith Butler that got your attention?
Yeah, I think that was about it. Just talked about the defensive line, the young guys, as you mentioned a moment ago, coming along. Loudermilk, Mondo, definitely seeing improvement with those guys. I mean, do you feel differently about the Loudermilk selection? Watching them now than where you were at when they made the trade up and drafted him.
I mean, look, he's at no point did I think when they drafted him that he would have, be asked to play the amount of snaps that he's played so far. And still, it's not an earth shattering. It's still under 100 snaps if memory serves me with him, right? It's like 70. How many snaps does he have to date?
Yeah, it's around there. I mean, he's around 15. He got 15, I think, last week. Or was it 25? Forget the number on that.
There are some positive snaps with him on tape. Right, and so short answer, I am impressed with his already development. Some of the things that you are seeing on tape, he does still get, I think, turned a little bit at times. I think some of that obviously will come with experience. And I think you and I talked on the show the other day. One of the things that I think stuck out to me, and when watching the all 22 from the Browns game, is that he seems to understand where he's supposed to be in certain defenses and what his assignment is. So he obviously will be asked to get stronger and do other things in there. But there are base things he's not lost out there, I don't think, at least from what I've seen so far. And you see things where him being able to to do things where he control, even some two-gap situations where he'll kind of control the guy in front of him and flash into a gap and then move over to the other gap. It's far too early, I think, to make great, or not great because of the limited snap size, just as it's the same where you can't, make any hard, the 10 snaps that Taco gave this team the other day were good snaps. And in fact, didn't register an official statistic, I don't think, in the game book there. But when you look at the half a sack that he probably should have and potentially even the half a forced fumble that he probably should have in that game, along with everything else that he did in that game, those were some overall impressive 10 snaps for a guy that's hadn't been with the team very long. So long story short, they're getting more out of Isaiah Loudermilk than I thought they would get out of him by this point in the season, and in a positive way as well too. But on the flip side, if everybody was healthy, would he be playing the snaps?
Right. Agreed. 76 snaps for him defensively this season, 15 of them coming against the Browns. Yeah, I think he's played well, and I've been happy with what he's done so far. I think you're seeing improvement for sure from where it was early in the season. The primary concern I have with him, though, is just where is the upside, where is the ceiling with him? I don't know if my thoughts there have changed too much. I think he's a backup rotational guy, a Chris Wormley at best, someone more akin to a Nick Eason, Travis Kershke kind of guy, going old school with some of those names. And if that's what he is for a fifth-round pick, I mean, that's not terrible, obviously, but that's a guy you're trading up for and, things like that. So you have to consider making an aggressive move to get a guy with, I think, still a limited ceiling, because as an athlete, as a pass rusher, I haven't seen much difference there from his Wisconsin tape. But here and now, I think he's playing, he's improving, which is what they need from him. You need continual, gradual improvement from the young guys up front on both sides of the ball, offensive line and D-line.
Look, I mean, he's got some size to him, and the thing is with most defensive linemen, I was thinking back just the other day to back when Cameron Hayward was a rookie, and man, you want to talk about few and far between snaps, and there were a lot of people at that time, thinking, oh man, what did they get here? Now, Dick LeBeau brought guys along real slow back then, I would say that at least the first however many 60, 70 snaps that Isaiah Loudermilk has had, pound for pound, were probably better quality snaps than Cameron Hayward had during his rookie season. Now, there's a lot of span in between there and asked to do different things in that defense and all. But look, they've got him, and they're going to continue playing him at this point. I mean, you got his feet wet enough now that even when you get, let's say, who would you get back up to speed? Stephon Tuitt, obviously.
Carlos Davis.
And maybe Carlos Davis when he comes off of IR, but that's still, hopefully, if he does come off IR, it's going to be a couple weeks away from now. Loudermilk, I think, still has a pretty good chance to maybe get a helmet. Over who would you choose over Henry Mondeau or Isaiah Loudermilk if it comes down to a helmet? Assuming you got, a guy like Davis back or
yeah. It's just tough because they're different positions. I mean, Mondeau is a backup nose tackle, I guess, kind of right now behind Bugs. So if Davis comes back, then Mondeau probably becomes more expendable. If Davis is still out and Tuitt's back, you might need Mondeau because you need someone who's technically a nose tackle. I know Mondeau's not very good there, but that's kind of where he's working right now. They're kind of thin on options at this point. So we'll see. Loudermilk and Davis don't play the same positions. I mean, Davis more nose tackle, sub package 3 tech. Loudermilk more of a base type of end kind of guy, doesn't play a lot in sub. So, I mean, I think you just kind of deal with that whenever the point comes and see who's healthy, who's available, and what the lines are going to look like.
Well, the thing is right now, and it's a now situation, is this team is going to need Isaiah Loudermilk to continue to play some level of snaps Monday night. So,
yep.
Cam Hayward's talked about how he's asking the right questions, and Butler made sure to say that they like what they're seeing so far with his development so far. So just keep getting better every game. And once again, he's going to be a guy that continues to get snaps, at least in the immediate future, next 2 or 3 games.
Anything else from the coordinators, Dave, Keith Butler, or Matt Canada to talk about? I think that's probably the bulk of it, but anything else?
No, I think that's got most of it there.
Okay. I think we should actually take a break right now and talk to our buddy Eric Edholm. Speaking of the Bears on Monday night. So we'll talk to him. He covers the Bears and also writes for Yahoo Sports, covers the draft and NFL, a little bit of quarterback talk there later in our conversation. So let's take a quick break and come back with Eric Edholm.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and normally on Wednesday we have a beat writer in that covers the opposing team that the Pittsburgh Steelers will play, but with the game on Monday Night Football this week against the Chicago Bears, we've waited till Friday to get someone in to help us cover and preview this game. This time, an old friend of the show. It's been a while since we've had him on before. I think we've had him on like once or twice before. I am talking about Eric Edholm, who writes for Yahoo Sports. Obviously lives in Chicago still. I'm pretty sure on that. You can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. That's EDHOLM. You can read his work on Yahoo Sports. He's been with them for quite a while. Does a lot of their draft work for them as well too. So with that long introduction out of the way, Eric, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Yeah, it's good being back. I don't like being called old. I knew what you meant. I'm kidding. Yeah, no, everything's good here. I'm in the Chicago area still, kind of watching this Bears team. I don't know, tread water. I don't even know if that's the right word or not, but it's a very interesting situation here. As I'm sure it is there for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I'm 50. How old am I now? I'm 53. So I think I might have you. I qualify as burning my feet on the earth there not too terribly long ago here. Eric, let's start first and look at the one of the main topics here heading into this weekend, and that's obviously the Bears injury report. Some, obviously notable names on that kind of headline by 3 players specifically: Khalil Mack with a foot, Alec Ogletree with an ankle, and Eddie Jackson with a hamstring. All 3 of those guys, really starters there. They jump off of the Bears injury report that was released on Thursday. What's kind of the latest there? Obviously, Khalil Mack missed that last game against the 49ers, I believe, with that foot injury. What are you hearing? How is this thing going to end up shaping out for them by the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. There was really no update as of, I think, Thursday on Mack's situation, and that leads me to believe he could miss another game. They've had little 1 or 2 game stretches over the last couple of years where he's been out, and it's a different defense without him. There's no doubt. Eddie Jackson's an interesting one because I don't think he's played all that well. Tackling has been an issue for him. I know he can still make plays on the ball. To me personally, I've not been a big fan of his play the last couple of years. I would say it's, average to slightly above replacement level at times. So, to me, I don't necessarily think he's the difference maker he was his first couple of years in the league. And that's been a tough development for the Bears. But Mack, obviously, even though he's had the occasional quiet game, he makes a difference when he's on the field. And that's one I think, the Bears have to be maybe a little bit concerned about heading into this game.
When you look at the Bears, obviously with they have Justin Fields in there now at quarterback. It's been a couple of games. You look at kind of the transition that he's made on the all-22. He seems to be a little bit more comfortable in that offense now. I think one of the things that jumped out to me when going over some of the tape and look, they obviously without Montgomery right now. I know they opened up his 21-day window. I think yesterday. I think it's probably still a little bit early to expect him to be on the field this weekend, but have Herbert there at running back, a draft pick that seems to be running well. And once again, I think one of the things that stuck out the most to me was the running game in general, the design the design running game specifically with Herbert. Thought the blocking was fine. Then you throw in kind of the off-script stuff with Justin Fields that really made a difference, I think, in that 49ers game. Where one of the biggest improvements that you've seen so far in the limited, starts that Justin Fields has had now? He looked a lot more comfortable in that offense against the 49ers there. But can you just speak on what you've seen as his progression so far?
Yeah, it's been slow, steady. But with enough promising flashes to where Bears fans think, okay, we have something here. This is not another tease at quarterback. This is not a Rex Grossman type situation. Rex actually played pretty well his first few times he got the ball, and it obviously led him to a Super Bowl. And they've had other quarterbacks over the years who've kind of tickled their fancy. Even Trubisky made a Pro Bowl one year, believe it or not. But yeah, this feels a little different, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think you set it up perfectly. His first start in Cleveland was nothing short of an abject failure, nightmare, whatever you want to call it. I think Matt Nagy at that time was really kind of hesitant to give up play calling because, it's like taking another feather out of his cap. Okay, you're not the offensive guru now. You're the kind of the grand poobah. You oversee the whole operation. He was, I think, a little bit hesitant to hand over play calling to Bill Lazor, former Bengals offensive coordinator. People may remember for a period there. But Bill has, I think, brought out some of that run ability. And I think that was one of the things that I was surprised Nagy couldn't showcase better. The other thing that people locally are really kind of irked about was in training camp, they were so driven on giving Andy Dalton starters reps, and he was going to get all the reps with the ones, and he was the guy. Justin's time is coming, and don't worry, everybody, he's going to get developed on the side. But he never worked with Allen Robinson in training camp, outside of, individual stuff maybe, but never built a chemistry with him. Darnell Mooney, he's had a better time kind of connecting with a little bit. But, still trying to get the ball to Cole Kmet and still trying to develop some sort of cohesion with his receivers, all the timing and everything that comes with it. So, looking back, why wasn't he getting at least some time with those guys, right? You'd think, look, you understand, you give 70, 80, 90% of the snaps to Dalton, whatever that number is, and develop Fields and make sure he gets a little bit of time with those guys. He never got it. So he's still kind of developing that on the fly a little bit. But I think the switch from Nagy to Lazor at play caller has made a difference. And that 4th and 1 play last week, it was the kind of play we saw at Ohio State where he can look dead to rights. He looks like he's about to get tackled in the backfield, turnover on downs, and he pulls a Houdini act. He's not the most amazing runner or athlete, but he's got creative ability and enough strength and enough power, enough quickness and burst to kind of get out of those situations and make special things happen. So it's not perfect. There's going to be some ugly throws here and there, some poor reads, but along the way, there's also probably going to be a couple plays that, make the hair on the back of your neck stand up at times.
Real quick before Alex jumps in here, I have Fields down as 6 of 22 on deep pass attempts with 20 or more air yards on them. Obviously, that's Ben Roethlisberger category.
Yeah,
right there. Not a good completion percentage. Is this a concern early on yet that he's not able to hit that deep pass?
Well, they brought in guys like Marquise Goodwin, and Mooney can get deep, and Demir Bird was, I guess, sort of the Patriots' deep threat last year. They traded for Jakeem Grant, although he's been more of kind of a special teams guy so far. So I don't know if it's by design or by the fact that he's maybe forcing some balls. There were a couple plays where it looked like Fields thought he had a penalty or free play. And it didn't work out, or he thought his guy was going to do a little something different. It's always difficult to know who's at blame on some of those, especially when the ball's nowhere near where the receiver is. And so, some of those I hesitate to put all the blame on Justin, but you're right. The deep passing game in general has been slow. Some of that has been protection too. Their tackles worry me. I know Jason Peters has kind of settled in a little bit. It just Larry Borum started playing a 5th-round pick out of Missouri. He played a little bit last week. So if the protection and the time is there, I think that could be better. He's had his process rushed a little bit, where you can see he's trying to just kind of air it out and get rid of the ball quickly at the same time. And that, his feet may not be set and he's not in a good spot to deliver the ball.
Eric, that leads me to the question I was going to ask. Justin Fields has been sacked more than any other quarterback this season, and he hasn't even started 2 of those games. Is that more on him? Is that O-line? I'm sure it's a combination, but where do you kind of assign the majority of the blame there?
Well, if we take the Cleveland game out of it, that was his first start. Like I said, abject failure, whatever you want to say. I mean, it was a waste of an afternoon. I think, he was 6 of 20, and he got hit, I think, 8 or 9 times. You take that game out, it's not been great, but it's been better. I think those numbers are a little bit skewed. And in that game, I mean, guys, it was, I'm not a scheme X's and O's genius, but if you've seen your quarterback get hit on, let's say, 4 of the first 10 times he's gone back to throw, or he's been flushed out of the pocket, are we going to keep going back to 5-man protections? Is that what we're going to do? I mean, and not build in some sort of running or scramble option or RPO or something. It just felt like I wanted to bang my head against the wall. Now, since then, they've kind of done a better job of mitigating it, but I will definitely say there are times when he holds onto the ball too long, no doubt. The touchdown to check down mentality is great, but you've got to have that clock. That's one thing that against the team that can rush the passer like the Steelers, keep an eye out. If it's 3rd and 7 or longer, that's going to be a favorable situation for Pittsburgh. But some of it is most definitely they've rotated their tackles and had countless pressures come from the outside, and especially his backside. I don't think he feels that backside pressure quite as well as as what he can see in front of him.
Right. Looking at the Bears' run game, they've turned to Khalil Herbert, as you mentioned, with Montgomery being out. How did Herbert, a rookie, a 6th-round pick, become kind of the bell cow lead back in this offense? And what's his skill set? What are his traits and strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, he's really kind of caught the attention of Chicago the last few weeks. He's really been good. And nothing against Damian Williams. He's a serviceable guy. And eventually when David Montgomery gets back in, I mean, like you mentioned, he's just starting to practice. I believe he practiced yesterday, but probably won't be ready for another week or 2 at the very earliest. So when Herbert, first of all, he was, as a draft guy myself, I didn't know a whole lot about him. I knew he was Puka Williams' backup at Kansas. He goes to Virginia Tech. They've got a pretty good offensive line last year, and they're running outside zone 42 times a game, and he's gaining 150 yards a game. It's like, wow, who is this guy? He glides. He's got a real sort of smooth, subtly fast approach where you don't think he's moving, but he's actually scooting, and he's very efficient in his movement. He gets outside quickly. He runs with a little bit of pop in his pads for, not a big guy by any means. He's he's a 200, maybe 205 pound back. So compact, well built for what he is. But, similar to what they had in Tariq Cohen, you have more of a stocky, thicker guy than necessarily a power back or something like that. But he's got really nice quickness. Fairly natural hands. They haven't thrown to a ton, but they've gotten him involved in the screen game and the check down game and stuff. And there are times when he's got a little less tackle breaking ability, but a little more burst than Montgomery. So when they get both those guys back and Cohen coming off pup list at some point, they've got options in the backfield. So Herbert has handled the load and done really well with it lately. I think you guys will be impressed.
When you look at jump over to the defensive side of football there, you look at a couple of names, not premier names, but names that most people who follow the NFL, regularly should kind of know. Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman in the middle there, obviously. Bilal Nichols, not so much. But what have you seen out of that front so far? And, specifically against the run, because let's face it, the Steelers, in order for them to have success on the offensive side of football, they have got to have a successful run rate. They did that against the Cleveland Browns. It played a big, big part in the win on Sunday there. So what are the strengths and the weaknesses of this current group of three up front, which obviously could, be heavily impacted if Khalil Mack's unable to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a drop-off. I will say, the one sort of pleasant surprise for the Bears defensively has been Robert Quinn. He was so dogged around here for not performing a year ago and not making impact plays, and he's really done a nice job. I mean, maybe leveled off a little bit. I don't think he's been quite as impactful of late, but, that happens, right? Guys get taken out of the game, especially Mack didn't play last week, But he's really done a nice job, and he's been one of the better, I would say, more consistent run defenders up there. They actually, other than I mentioned Eddie Jackson's tackling issues, they actually tackle pretty well on the perimeter too. The one guy who frustrates the heck out of me, because I really like his skill set and I really like him as a player, but Roquan Smith at times, he was a high pick, top 10 pick. He's sort of in that Bush range where you guys took him. I mean, He's got great coverage ability. He can blitz. I think there are times when he comes flying in so hot and overruns plays that he takes himself out of the run game a little bit and can't make the plays he should. The other guy who was such a revelation in the preseason was Alec Ogletree. Of course, he's been around the league for a while, 30, 31 years old, whatever he is at this point. I wouldn't say he's been a liability, but I wouldn't say he's played well either. I would say what we saw in the preseason and maybe even early in the year might have been a little bit of an aberration. So, and you mentioned, Nichols and guys like that. They've had to play this kid, Angelo Blackson, quite a bit. I haven't necessarily been all that impressed. And, it's been a little bit of piecemeal, getting Mario Edwards Jr. and, a seventh-round pick out of BYU, Kairos Tonga, has had to take snaps as well. Hicks was in and out of the lineup. He's obviously one of their rocks. He's a great player, even at, I don't know if he's 33 yet or whatever, but he's got some mileage for a bigger guy, 330-plus pounds, but he's so strong. If you have a right-handed run game, he's going to probably do his best to take that away. Teams that run to the left usually have a little bit more success, it seems like. And this is more anecdotal because I haven't broken it down, but he's so good at setting the edge and defeating or at least neutralizing double teams that he's a tough guy to deal with.
When you look at, a lot of people probably don't know the corners overall, Jaylen Johnson and Kendall Vildor there.
Yep.
How are those two playing so far this season? And, obviously we know a little bit about Artie Burns there backing up there right now. I don't think he's gotten a lot of playing time overall there, but talk about their secondary, especially the corner positions there.
Yeah, I don't even think Burns has taken a snap this year. They've had some, for once, I guess you'd say, even after letting Kyle Fuller go, they haven't had injuries kill the position, which is a good news for them. They really had three guys who've taken, Kendall Vildor, like you said, smaller, hyper-competitive guy. He really opened my eyes in camp. I saw him his last year at Georgia Southern. He was, taking on speed receivers, the 6'4" guys, everything in between. I was impressed even when he lost battles that he could compete like that. So Vildor can do a lot of that. I think he's a really good, he's really good in the red zone. Like he's very efficient at staying close to his man. Now he's had some blown coverages this year. He's had some moments where he hasn't looked great, but this is a 23-year-old kid. He's on his way up. Jaylen Johnson, early in the year, it looked like he kind of took a little bit of a step back, got picked on a little. Lately, I've seen a return to what we saw more of last year. He was a good second-round pick by Ryan Pace, in my opinion. Yeah, he was something like the 8th or 9th corner taken, even though he went, I think, 50th or whatever overall. Those guys have held up. Duke Shelley in the slot is probably a guy that can be exploited, but again, another sort of competitive player. And they have some coverage ability in the secondary. Obviously, guys like Eddie Jackson and Tashawn Gibson's a pretty good player. DeAndre Houston Carson's played pretty well for him this year as well. So, it's not a banner group, but it certainly isn't the weakness of this defense either, I don't think.
Eric, I like to ask the question of any of the beat guys, especially for opponents Pittsburgh doesn't play often. Give me one underrated guy, could be offense, defense, even on special teams, that Steeler fans should know about. Some guy that, isn't a big household name, but is playing some good ball for Chicago so far this season. Yeah,
we mentioned Herbert. He's obviously one you got to keep an eye. And again, I mentioned Jason Peters too. Like he looked so out of place the first game or two. I thought, oh my God, this is just not going to work. You make this sort of panicky move. He's almost 40 years old, but he's played pretty well lately. I mean, the interior offensive line, I think, is overall a very good group. They've been taxed because of what they've had to, make up for outside. I think that's definitely kind of hurt them a little bit. I'm trying to think of somebody else. Trevis Gibson is a part-time pass rusher for them, and he's had to play a little bit more when Khalil Mack's been out. He's pretty good. He's got a little spin move. He's got some burst and athleticism, kind of a long-rangey guy. If you're looking for a off-the-radar type who might have a sack or an impact play, I would say Gibson is somebody to keep an eye on the defensive side. He was a 6th-round pick out of Tulsa 2 years ago, and I don't know. He's a little better than I realized.
Yeah. My last question for you, then I'll have Dave finish things out. Does Matt Nagy have any chance to return next season? I mean, if this team turns things around, is there any scenario where he won't be fired on Black Monday? Because it almost feels inevitable. Maybe I'm wrong in that assessment, but I mean, is this it for Matt Nagy?
You're not wrong.
Okay.
They've lost 3 straight. They've got this game on the road, obviously, and the bye week for them is next week. I think if they lose this one, a primetime game, Bears fans will be watching. They always watch, but they'll be watching especially hard in this one. You lose this one, you're, what are they, 3-4? Yeah, 3-5 right now. They'd be 3-6. With Baltimore, Arizona, Green Bay, couple games against the Vikings left on the schedule, that's a lot to make up. If they win this one, the bye week, and especially if Fields does well, I mean that really, to me, it's those two are tied a little too closely than they probably should be at this point. I think we're starting to see that maybe Nagy isn't, the best guy to groom him. It's possible with a resounding victory somehow on this week. The bye week is a little less painful. There's less focus on Nagy's job, and if they split the rest of the games, hey, maybe. But I'm with you. At this point, it feels 70, 80, 90% likely. I just think they've seen some things out of him, especially, game management-wise, but also kind of big picture team organization. I don't want to say leadership, but guidance-wise, whatever that word is. It's felt a little too disjointed and a little bit too, it's just not working, I don't think, the way that anybody expected.
Eric, when you look at what Fields did against the 49ers, looked like just of all those runs, just 2 or 3 kind of design runs. The rest of it off script there. How is there? What is the about the percentage of their RPO usage right now? And usually, to me, at least what I've seen on tape the last couple of games, there, do they need to increase maybe their RPO usage to make things a little bit easier on him, or do they need to add in maybe a few more designed runs with him to kind of take some of that pressure off the offense there? I mean, they do a lot of booting him around and misdirection stuff, and it seems like they could probably get him out in space a little bit more, easier if they did that. So, how is their RPO usage, and do you think they'll, starting Monday night, see a little bit more design runs with him?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your quarterback, right? I mean, there's some teams that, I don't think Kirk Cousins runs a lot of RPO. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to think of a good example or Brady or whoever, there's certain quarterbacks for whom you say, all right, I don't necessarily think this is going to be the right move. But for them, I would say you would expect a lot more. They've so far, don't quote me on this, but I would guess that of their RPO plays, they've probably ended up runs more often than passes. You've seen a few where you can see Fields pulling it, making a quick decision. A lot of the times when they do call those RPOs, still too infrequent for my taste, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 a game, whatever it may be. It's ending up a run. So that's fine because we want to get Fields on the move and use his athleticism. But at the same time, the design runs, I think, would be a good place to start. And, he's really good outside. He's not crazy fast. He's not electric like Lamar, but he's got a big frame and he's got good downhill running ability and he's a smart runner out there. So, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised they haven't designed more for him.
We're wrapping up. Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports talking Bears Steelers here. Final quick question here. X factor on both sides of the ball heading into this game.
Yeah, I would probably say Fields, right, is the obvious answer for the Bears. Khalil Herbert might be number 2. Like, they just don't get Allen Robinson the ball. I really feel it's almost criminal at this point. Maybe we're overrating Allen Robinson, but I don't think we are. I think he's a pretty good player. So, I would cheat and sort of say those 3 guys are very important. Defensively, I guess it comes down to, I mentioned Roquan Smith. I really believe that, as valuable as he could be, coverage, run defense, blitz, he can do it all. The lack of consistent tackling and angles to the ball have kind of frustrated me and other people here. So, I would say he's an X factor. He could go one of 2 ways. He could be the best defender on the field if Mac doesn't play, or at least on the Bears, or he could be somewhat of a liability that can be exploited a little bit, especially with Pat Freiermuth playing well, and he's going to have to focus on that. And and Najee catches 8 passes a game or whatever. So that's obviously gonna put him, I think, in the crosshairs a little bit.
All right, Eric, Monday night, Heinz Field, Chicago at Pittsburgh here. Where do you come in on this one at, and how do you see this one going? Obviously, look, not a huge juggernaut of the Steelers offense, especially when it comes to lighten up the scoreboard. Defense did come off of a strong game and stopping that run against the Browns and limiting the Browns offense overall, especially on the scoreboard. How about a prediction for our listeners here?
Yeah, I'll say 23-16 Steelers win. I just think they're a little bit better football team right now. Obviously, the home field advantage factors in. The health of the Bears defense is enough of a concern for me. And I think they'll make at least 1, if not 2 or 3 big defensive plays against Fields. Like I said, he's put balls in harm's way, and he hasn't been fully exploited to his talents, I don't think. So that combination worries me. You'll see some big stuff from him. I think you'll get excited about his potential, but ultimately it won't be enough. I think Pittsburgh's just going to be a little bit better.
And obviously doing the work over there at Yahoo Sports and always looking at draft stuff any time of the year. What is your initial kind of top 5 quarterback list? It's way early. We're not going to hold you to it here, but yeah. But if you had to roll through your top 5 in this draft class at quarterbacks, what would that look like right now?
Let's start with your boy, Kenny Pickett, huh? Kenny Football's been playing great. I don't know if he's my quarterback 1, but he's in the mix. He's not going to be your multi-tool run pass guy. He's a thrower, and he's an interesting one. I need to do a little bit more work on him. A little bit of an older quarterback prospect, but he's in the mix. Matt Corral from Ole Miss. If I think Steelers fans should watch the Ole Miss Liberty game this weekend. 2 different styles, but 2 guys who have very intriguing dual threat ability. Malik Willis from Liberty, potential first-round pick. He's unique. I don't know how to describe him. He's built like a linebacker. He throws like a quarterback and runs like a running back. It's pretty impressive. He has his share of mistakes, but he's fun. Matt Corral, if you build a system for it, he plays within it. He can be a very good thrower and runner. He's been off lately. He's been banged up. The ankle's bothering him. Carson Strong from Nevada, depending on the health of his knee, could be the best quarterback in this class or the 6th best. So those are a few names that I think Steelers fans, if you're thinking about the future, to maybe get on your radar a little bit.
Well, Eric, look, we don't get off and get you on enough here. Obviously, covering the Bears and draft and stuff like that. And the Steelers only play the Bears, normally every 4 years here. But we appreciate checking back in on you again here, and let's do this again, and maybe even during the draft season here.
Looking forward to it, fellas. All right, have a great weekend. Enjoy Monday.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to Eric Edholm. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Eric Edholm. That's Eric _ Edholm. I should be more specific about that. Again, covers the NFL and the Bears for Yahoo Sports and covers the draft. And so maybe we'll hit him up during draft time as well. So Eric, haven't talked to him in a while, but a good buddy, good dude overall, and glad to have him on the show, Dave.
Yeah, we'll look into try to get him back on during draft season or whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. So see what we won't Dave and I won't preview the Bears too heavily today. We'll save that for Monday's show. I haven't done a deep dive into their tape yet, just kind of some of the surface level stuff right now to prepare to talk to Eric, but we'll save that Monday so we have something to talk about then. But good stuff there from Eric, and certainly as you mentioned, Dave, we'll have to check out their injury report and see what the health of some of those guys like Eddie Jackson is, because those are some key names on the injury report right now for Chicago.
All right, one thing that we did get that ended up being a topical conversation, Melvin Ingram's comments to the Chiefs media on what was yesterday? Thursday, and also the Browns special teams coordinator weighing in on the Steelers' fake field goal there.
Yeah, we'll start with the Ingram comments here briefly, and I think he was very diplomatic and said all the right things. Essentially, said he had a good, he respects the Steelers, he appreciated the time there, respects Coach Tomlin. Just said it was a different environment than different situation, I should say, than he anticipated, and that's obviously referring to Ingram. Thought he was going to be the starter, assumed he would start or play more snaps than he did, and Pittsburgh viewed him as the backup rotational guy, and that was the disconnect there between the roles and expectations that led to the frustration and led to the trade. So, I mean, Ingram, I think overall is saying all the right things, and I wish him well. I'm not going to dwell on it too much longer. He's a Chief now. We'll see him week 16, but I think it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out, and whatever the level of miscommunication there was, whether Melvin probably thought he heard one thing or assumed something else. I mean,
you know what happens when you assume.
Yep. But
that works on both sides. The Steelers, I think, have to be clear about expectations and roles. This happened with Harrison, happened with Blunt, happening with Ingram. There's an obvious disconnect there before the signing happens.
Yeah, it sounds more like they give kind of the speech of, this will work out just fine, without getting, just come in and work hard, and we'll make sure things work out in a positive way. Just trust us here, That used to be I used to use that as kind of pickup lines. So just trust me,
Did it work? I'm afraid.
Yeah, it did.
Is that the key? Is that what I'm missing here?
Well, until they try to burn your stuff down and all like that. It's a bad date gone wrong, basically with Ingram here.
With Ingram. I didn't know what we were talking about. Your dating life.
What's going on with your dating situation there?
It's barren. It's a barren wasteland. I'm trying my best over here, but I'm like the Detroit Lions. I'm trying really hard, but I'm losing in every single game.
Keep after it.
All right, thanks. Browns special teams coordinator talking about the fake field goal, and basically was just, in so many words, saying, not sure why they ran it. Not really sure why they attempted it the way they attempted it. And Matthew had a good article talking about that. I'll do a film breakdown on that that kind of delves into that a little bit more, but it's all drawing to the same conclusion of, I'm not sure why Pittsburgh felt confident to run it, and especially to run it so just brazenly the way they did. I mean, anytime you motion somebody on a field goal or special teams play, it's like big siren, a big red light that's going off. That's telling the opposition that something's up here, something's different. And so I just think, again, I understand that these things are pass fail. If they work, you're a genius. If they don't work, you're an idiot. But just the process of it, taking a step back here and trying to understand why Pittsburgh felt good about this call, I can't wrap my head around that. I don't know what they saw. I don't know why they thought motioning the left wing, Freiermuth to the right side would not fool the Browns. I understand the snap needed to be quicker than what it was, and they're trying to hit this thing bang, bang. But still, I just think it's a really bad process and a really bad plan by Danny Smith and Mike Tomlin.
When you go back and you look at what we said the other day about looking at this thing. It's hard to look in a vacuum, and how it's a very pass-fail, kind of orientated there, and trying to just be as objective as possible with it. I had not seen the all 22 of it yet. Had you? I don't think you had you?
When on Wednesday?
On Monday, I think.
No, on Monday I had not seen it. No.
Right. When you look at it on all 22, oh man, because in the TV you don't see, they're focused on, I believe the camera's focused on Boswell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get to see a lot of what the commotion that's going on right at the snap, pre-snap, and the motion and all like that there. Man, when you look at this thing in all 22 and you see the motion in there, and Mike Thomas said it gave him enough time to take a picture of it. Yeah, it did. Way too much. And putting the motion in there played a part in giving them that. Circling back to this in general now, I think it was an idiotic call. I mean, I really, really do. If you're going to do that, have a tackle eligible out there, or at least line the two tight ends up on that side, period, pre-snap. But even that, because of their numbers, is going to set off some sort of an alarm. That play should have been reserved for maybe when Zach Banner gets back on the field, or Joe Haig. Put Joe Haig out there in that situation there. That linebacker, who was the player?
Anthony Walker.
Walker. Boy, he saw that the moment it happened. I mean,
but it's easy to see. It's a big flashing light going off.
Sure,
this is not normal.
Sure, and to think that you're going to slip that by, I think it's kind of idiotic, to be honest with you. I would now like to circle back to my thoughts on Monday, where I said, you look at this in a vacuum. If it passes, it's great. If it doesn't, yeah. Now seeing what I saw. And I didn't like the call in general after trying to be as objective as possible with it. I think it was an idiotic decision, and I don't. It's hard to kind of defend that thing, even after the fact had that thing gone well, knowing what we know now on all 22. I think it was a miserable call.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing about a successful special teams fake. It has to look the same. There can't be any tell to the opposition, or a very, very subtle one that looking back, maybe you pick up on it, but it can't be something obvious because it's such a big alert for the opposing team. It has to be everything looks the same, everything looks normal, and that's how we're going to run it. So if you want to run that play and just have Gentry leak in the right side, to the right flat, maybe that's the way to do it. Again, I'll have to go through the film room on that and have to write down all my thoughts, and you'll see that this weekend. But basically, what Pittsburgh, I believe, was seeing was the Cleveland would rush the opposite hash. They would rush hard to that side. They had 6 guys to that side, and they would always rush and try to block from that side. And so Pittsburgh idea was they're going to rush hard from the right hash, so we're going to put 2 guys over there and put the one guy who drops out, Walker, in conflict, trying to cover 2 guys when it's just him out there. But as soon as you get the motion there with Freiermuth, the rush is off. They're dropping out because they know something's up. It might be a fake, and so the block has now been aborted, basically. And so that's a long way of just saying I just think it was really bad process. What Pittsburgh was trying to do was poor on this play, and I think it goes beyond just the outcome based. I think from a process standpoint, and that was my question on Monday, what did Pittsburgh see to make them feel like they could do this? I don't think there was enough evidence there to really give that comfort and belief that they could hit this play. And then certainly when you're motioning Freiermuth over, tipping your hand at all this stuff, it's just a big mistake.
And you got to do a better job of building in that backside post by Jordan Berry.
The backside post by Jordan Berry?
Yeah, he does. You got to run. You got to run. You got to have the punter at least run something in there. I'm
running a little bit.
I'm kidding there. He kind of lollygagged out there. At least if he would have ran a post on that, maybe there'd been a throwback option for I'm kidding. But if you look at that, Boswell not Boswell. Not Berry.
Harvin. Yeah, I didn't know where you were taking.
I got my names confused there. Harvin's got to run that backside post on that one there.
Yeah, it's just, again, I'll have the article on that. I think Matthew laid it out well, but really confused by that. And so I think that was just, again, we know the outcome was bad, but the process of it to me was the most egregious part of that play, which leads to bad outcomes 9 times out of 10.
And once again, the details are in the tape there, and we didn't have a good picture of it ourselves when we talked about it on Monday. There, it just goes to show you sometimes how the tape can really change your opinion on something there. I mean, they have they had 3 guys dropping out. I mean, once that linebacker started giving the alert there, they knew something was up there, and that play from the moment the motion happened was over with at that point. And there's not enough time to kill it at that point and all like that. Not enough time to call a timeout there. It was just bad, as you mentioned, bad process there. And how they got the go ahead to do that, I don't know. Don't put emotion in there.
Yeah, again, the idea was that side of the Browns rush was supposed to rush hard. They're supposed to attack and be aggressive because they showed that once earlier this season, I think against maybe Arizona. I forget who the opponent was. But with the motion, that rush was called off and they drop out and everything's covered and Boss gets hurt. And so that's just how that goes. So, yeah, I'll have a film remote on that this weekend that kind of just hammers Danny Smith some more. So for all the people that say I never criticize Danny Smith, which is not true to begin with, he'll be getting the Alex Kozora hammer this weekend.
And look, I mean, that it's a testament, I think, to kind of what we do too, to not overreact until we see the tape on some stuff too.
Yeah, that's why the tape never lies, and we needed that perspective and view. It's a little harder for us to watch special teams tape this year, unfortunately, with all the Game Pass type stuff, but that was a play certainly worth circling and for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
All right,
Dave, anything else you want to talk about? I'm kind of running out of stuff to talk about today. It's a pretty quiet show here. We can obviously preview and make our picks for Week 9, but any other Steelers-related happenings you want to discuss?
No, I think we got most of it there, right?
Yeah, I think so too. So let's, before we make our Week 9 picks, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
All right, Alex, when I gamble, I'm always looking for a way to get an edge, but at MyBookie, they double your first deposit, so you start with a leg up. With your account locked and loaded, get in on the UFC 268 action this weekend, which features 2 title fights on a stacked card. The tension between Usman and Covington has reached a boiling point, so look for this main event to end quickly and bet the under on total rounds. Don't just take my word for it. Head to MyBookie and sign up now and use promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible to get your money doubled and start winning today ahead of that UFC 268 action. Remember, good friends don't let friends win alone, so have your buddies use your referral link so you're all eligible to receive an additional 250% bonus on your first deposit. Plus, it's unlimited to redeem, so all your friends can join the party at MyBookie with you. Use my promo code TERRIBLE. Sign up now, claim your first deposit bonus with MyBookie, and use the extra funds to kickstart your winning season today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie, and you can do so by going to mybookie.ag.
And we both picked the Colts last night. The Jets almost had that backdoor cover, but thankfully, I think that was what's his name, the linebacker from Stanford that had that interception there that saved things for us.
Boy, I was starting to take that final Jets drive a little bit personal there because I pretty much had called that one as a win midway, I think, through the third quarter there, and slowly the boy, that quarterback's been around, Josh Johnson, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since 2008.
Yeah, he's bounced around all over the place there. But in the meantime, we are looking forward to moving forward into some of the rest of this Week 9 action. We will start with the Houston Texans at the Miami Dolphins. I know you'll have the direct TV tuned into this one, Alex. Dolphins minus 5.5 at home against the Texans.
Yeah, give me Miami. Well, I know Tyrod. You know what? I always change my picks. It always ends up biting me. But Tyrod Taylor's starting. I'll say Houston in this one.
I'll take Miami, and I will lay the 5.5 points in this one comfortably. Denver Broncos on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. I take it Dak Prescott's going to be back this week. Dallas, big favorite at home against the Broncos, laying 10.
rightfully so. Give me the Cowboys.
I'm with you. Give me the Cowboys to win big on this one. I think Ezekiel Elliott will have a huge game in this one. Something I'll probably be watching, tuning in to, the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Ravens coming off the bye at that, laying 6 at home against the Vikings.
Yeah, give me Baltimore. That run game's still been strong overall. The past game's gotten better in Minnesota. I mean, they're a tough team to figure out. They're always up and down. Had that loss to the Cowboys and Cooper Rush on primetime football last week, but give me the Ravens.
Yeah, the Ravens come off the bye, man. It just so many things at home. Give me the Ravens lay the 6 points in this one. New England on the road against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers +4 at home against the Patriots.
Yeah, I got to give me the Pats. Matt Jones playing really well right now. I was a big fan of him coming out of Bama, and I think people are seeing why. The Panthers still don't know what the quarterback situation is. I don't think McCaffrey's going to play. I think it's still up in the air, but my guess is that he won't. Another week for him, so give me the Pats.
Are the Patriots a sleeper team here?
Yeah, I'm surprised by the line of that one, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, sleeper's harder to define, but I think they're a competitive team.
I mean, are they going to be a wild card team?
What's their record right now? Where are they at? They're right around game above 500 or something.
Right.
AFC East, they're 4-4, so they're at 500. Yeah, I think they'll be fighting for that 6-7 seed.
All right, give me New England. Lay the 4 points on the road against the Panthers there. Buffalo Bills on the road going to Jacksonville, laying on the road 14.5 points. The Bills against the Jaguars.
It's a big line, but the Jags just look utterly defeated. So I'm going to go Buffalo in this one.
Yeah, this should be a walk in the park, you would think. I'd take the Bills lay the 14.5 there. Another game I'll be paying attention to, Browns at the Bengals. The Browns now minus Odell Beckham Jr. The Bengals are actually favored in this one, 2.5 points at home. And the Bengals obviously smarting off of that loss against Mike White and the Jets last Sunday there. What's your feeling on this one? Boy, if the Browns lose this one, Alex, I mean, then they're 0-2 in the division at that point, and not looking great.
And 4-5 overall. This is a huge game for both sides. Man, I don't know which way I want to go in this one. My gut, when you first said it, my gut said Cleveland, so I'm gonna go the Browns in this one.
You know what? I'm with you there too. I have a feeling that they find a way to get over on this one here. If they don't, we need to really start talking about how in trouble they might be here. So give me the Browns plus 2.5 on the road against Cincinnati there. Las Vegas Raiders on the road against the New York Football Giants. Raiders are road favorites, 3.5 points in this one.
Yeah, even on the road, that's quite a trip for them to make. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think Barkley's coming back, but that Giants team, I know they played KC tough, but KC's in such a weird situation. I think the Raiders rally, and they're going to get a win by touchdown. Yeah,
I'll take the Raiders and lay the 3.5 points on the road with you here. The Atlanta Falcons on the road against the New Orleans Saints. Saints home favorites by 6 points in a divisional game.
Yeah, they're starting Trevor Siemian at quarterback. I think the Saints win, but Falcons cover.
Man, I'm going to go with you here. I think the Falcons can pull the upset here, though, on top of it here. So I'm going to take the Falcons plus the 6 points, play that money line as well, too. I think the Falcons can win this outright. The Chargers on the road against the Eagles. Chargers 2-point road favorites over the Eagles. And the Eagles just coming off of a big blowout win over the Lions, I believe.
Yeah, but I think they come back down to earth facing a much better opponent in Herbert and the Chargers. Eagles just have to have a better commitment to running the football. Hurts has just been just bailing on clean pockets, and so give me the Chargers.
I'm with you on this one as well, too. I'll take the Chargers on the road and lay those 2 points. The Green Bay Packers minus Aaron Rodgers. Boy, not a great time to be without Aaron Rodgers in this game here. But also the Chiefs. Man, who the heck are the Chiefs right now? Chiefs at home, at Arrowhead, laying 7.5 points against the Packers, and Jordan Love going to get the start there.
You don't happen to know what the line was with Rodgers pre-COVID announcement, do you? Not that it matters.
I could find it, but I don't. I want to say it was like 3 points or something like that. I don't remember.
Man, I've been picking the Chiefs every week waiting for that game. I know they've been so horrible against the spread this season. I'm going to go with the Packers this time. I'm probably going to be wrong about it. The Chiefs probably finally blow out the Jordan Love-led Packers, but I'm going Green Bay.
I'm going to go Chiefs. I smell a rat here. I'm going to lay to 7.5 points. I think the Chiefs can potentially blow them out here. The Titans on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. The Titans, big blow, losing Derrick Henry. Going to be interesting to see how a team that likes to obviously run the football can move forward offensively. The Titans defense hadn't been playing all that well either, I don't think. Rams laying 7.5 points at home against the Titans.
Yeah, I want to go the Titans here, but my brain's telling me go the Rams. I mean, assuming Von Miller plays, you got Vaughn, you got Aaron Donald, you have Leonard Floyd against the Tennessee Titans team losing its most valuable player. It's hard not to go the Rams here.
Yeah, I think this one has a potential, getting away from Tennessee here early here. I'm going to take the Rams and lay the 7.5 points, and I believe that is the Sunday night game as well too. You and I will reserve the Steelers-Bears game for the Monday show and pick that one for whatever the line is come that time.
All right, good deal. So let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show, Dave.
All right, let's see what the email machine holds for us on this Friday here. Let's see. Bryce writes in, I really like the use of the RPOs to jumpstart our offense, but I'm worried that relying so heavily on RPOs is not a sustainable solution based on what they've done so far. What would be the best way to build off of those RPOs to make the passing game more versatile? Well, until you start hitting some deeper shots down the field and being able to push the football down the field, RPOs is still going to be the best way to move forward with this. This offense, Bryce, is very reliant on a successful running game. They staying ahead of the chains and stuff like that. Now, can you do, what would you do outside of the RPOs, Alex, to kind of, I do think they have to find a way to build off of their heavier usage and try to decrease the heavy usage of RPOs. But there's also the part of me that comes from the school of don't go fixing anything that's not broken.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's hard, obviously, literally build off an RPO because you can't run double moves and things like that because linemen get downfield and you might get called for it, and that's happened a couple times this season. So, I mean, it's just about trying to find other ways to succeed that isn't just so reliant on RPOs. I mean, it's things like the deep ball, as you said. It's staying on schedule with the run game. It's being a better red zone offense. This red zone offense is 20-something in football right now, 55%. That number has to improve. They got to convert more when they get their chances inside the 20. So I don't think there's a direct thing you can build off of the RPO game. I mean, that's just what it's going to be, the run-pass option. But just trying to be better in other areas will naturally make you less reliant on having to have those plays hit to be successful.
Right, but on top of it, they first and foremost, and we've said this right, this team's got to be able to run the football. So, however you have to go about doing that, you got to do it. And until Ben Roethlisberger, and I think it's kind of a hopeless wish, if you will. But I mean, unless he starts hitting some of these shots down the field here, you're not going to be able to get into more traditional. Offensive play calling, I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm with you. And as you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so just if it's working and it gets you out of stadiums, as Tomlin likes to say, then that's what you're going to keep doing.
Right. And I mean, you're going up against two teams in the Bears and the Lions that you should be able to, you would think, beat with your current kind of offensive structure there. So why would you want to go putting, unless you have to go putting more stuff on tape, for teams to learn on if you don't necessarily have to, would be by
or even just do the things that are working. So if you try something different and it doesn't work, you might lose one of those games to the Bears or Lions, and you can't afford to have those losses against teams you should be beating.
I would maybe say you could put some more different window dressing on some of this stuff, with the motions and all like that, and add more lipstick onto the pig, if you will. But other than that, man, I called for heavier usage of RPOs several weeks ago, and since then this team's been winning. I'm not in a hurry to get away from that stuff until they can start hitting and they do have to find a way to get more explosive plays because one thing within that RPO situation there, other than those quick slants, it's hard to get a lot of explosive plays off of that kind of stuff.
Right. Obviously, had the one to Deontay, but generally speaking, they're not going to be the 50-yard plays. But by the way, we should mention Big Ben confirmed podcast listener for his Matt Spaeth comparison right after you made it on the podcast Wednesday. So just want to throw that out there. That was a good comp by you. Sure. It makes a lot of sense.
I mean, and just an overall body kind of, you look at him now based on what he was as a rookie. You get just a regular stand-up shot of him on Getty Images or whatnot. He looks like Matt Spaeth. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I going to compare the two as blockers just yet, because I think even if you go back on my Twitter, if you search my Twitter account going way back there, I warned people that Matt Spaeth was not a sexy player in Pittsburgh, but he was what he was, and he was an extremely good blocker. I thought people undervalued Matt Spaeth, especially that year that he left and went, I believe it was, to the Bears there. Mm-hmm. And you need those kind of guys. And that guy was obviously not great in the passing game, but he was really something as a blocker. And Gentry's nowhere close to that. But if they could get Gentry to become half the blocker that Matt Spaeth was during his prime, they'll be in a lot better position at that point there. Kevin N. writes in, mental focus on Chicago. The level of play in the NFL means no game is a gimme, but can a highly favored team take it a bit too easily, working less in the film room and in practice, starting and playing the game with too little urgency, assuming it will eventually all work out for them? Could the leadership of some teams worsen that issue? Might the Steelers fall into that category? Kevin, this is a long way of you asking me, is this a trap game, I guess. If you've listened to this podcast for long enough and follow me on Twitter, you know my thoughts on this. I don't believe there is a trap game in the NFL. I don't buy it. These are I'm more apt to buy it at the college level when you have Appalachian State playing a Michigan or whatnot, because such the offset of the quality of the talent is huge, and you're more apt to look past teams at the college level. If here we are in 2021 and teams need to be made aware that on any given Sunday another team can beat you, then shame on whoever. I think trap game in the NFL is a lazy way for the general NFL fan to sound like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you got to recognize how thin that margin of error to win in the NFL is, how close the talent level is. I mean, this is the best of the best, obviously. And when you have good leadership in a good locker room like Pittsburgh, that's had bad losses in the past, I don't think they're going to allow guys to lose sight of that fact. Maybe if it was a brand new locker room, if there was a real big leadership void or something like that, you could have that kind of problem. But generally in those situations, you're not the better team going in games anyway. So this team lost to Chicago 4 years ago in upset fashion. And a lot of the guys have changed by then, but some of the core guys have not. The Cam Haywards, the Benz, the Mike Tomlins of the world. So it's hard to think they're going to have that mentality. At least the leaders and the key guys in this team should not have this mentality.
Yeah, I could run back that statement I said about trap game 20 more times in this podcast. It's still not going to change what you're going to hear on talk radio the rest of this weekend, on Twitter. You're going to consistently say, "Oh, the Steelers better watch out. This is a classic trap game."
Playing down to the opponent. You're
right. Right. And God forbid should the Steelers lose this game, then you're going to get the, I told you this was a trap game. I don't buy any of that garbage, man, in the NFL. Now, would anybody be, I mean, the Steelers have had these clunkers before. And once again, at the NFL level, man, you turn the ball over a couple of times in a game and get 10 penalties that you shouldn't, and these games can turn in a hurry. So I mean, I don't believe, especially in the Steelers' sense, that they're going to under-prepare in any way. It's just, might they under-execute in a game? Absolutely, there. But long story short, Kevin, mental focus on Chicago should be what it should be every week, period.
Yeah, well said.
Jeff Berg writes in about Melvin Ingram. 3 quick things on Melvin. Did he really throw shade on Highsmith by saying he thought he was better than Highsmith, or was it rumored? I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, I did not hear Melvin Ingram say that he thought he was better than Alex Highsmith. I think a lot of that's maybe insinuated that he believes he should have been the starter over Watt. But for me to come out and say, did he really throw shade on Highsmith by saying he thought he was better than Highsmith, or the way I guess Aditi kind of phrased the report, I can't answer that question.
Me neither. I mean, Melvin Ingram has never publicly said anything about anything aside from his presser yesterday with Kansas City, where he was very diplomatic and said all the right things. So anything that was said was all done behind closed doors. We don't know exact quotes and context and things like that. It feels like it's very clear that Ingram believed he should be the starter. So I guess you could at least infer at the very least that he thought he was better than Alex Highsmith. I assume he doesn't think he was better than TJ Watt. And if he was, then I'm glad he got traded. Again, we don't know how Ingram went about asking for a trade, but based on what he said yesterday and how, again, diplomatic he was about Pittsburgh, I don't believe he took the James Harrison demanding, kind of forcing his way out so just kind of egregiously the way that Debo did.
Number 2, can you really be on the injury report without being injured? I thought you couldn't. Well, I mean, look, IR is a different story, especially with these guys on split contracts. You're going to have a grievance filed against you if you place a guy on IR that's not injured. Period.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There. Now, how are you going to prove a guy on the injury report is not really injured?
Yeah, and in that situation, who's going to file the grievance? If the team and the player both agree that the best course of action is to have him sit out so the guy won't risk a chance of injury so you can deal him, then who's filing the grievance there? No one.
Maybe Ingram running around saying, you know what, my groin's a little tight this week here, trying to help facilitate things. You know what I'm saying?
Players are always hurt. I mean, they're always dealing with something, and so you could always make that excuse with something. I'm sure when you're many weeks into a season the way that he was.
Number 3, how much will his intimate knowledge of the defense hurt us when we play KC? Well, how much does Cassius, pose the same questions? How much will Cassius Marsh impact the game this week?
Yeah, I think the answer to those, there's some value to it, but the impact is probably less than people think, especially whenever it's the Chiefs, and that's many, many weeks away, and calls will change and stuff like that. It actually might matter more for Marsh because, the Steelers aren't going to may not be able to change as quickly some other calls and things like that. But is there value? Sure. But is that going to be a talking point about that game post-game? No, it will not.
Is there some level of gamemanship to Cassius Marsh being signed by the Bears to the practice squad this week?
Yeah, I'm guessing that wasn't a total coincidence. I'm sure there's a couple of games there. Have the Steelers done that? Someone asked me yesterday if Pittsburgh's done that before. I want to say they have at some point.
I want to say they have too, but I can't call a specific.
Yeah, remember. I mean, I'm sure most teams have done that. But again, I mean, it's an asset. It's anything helps, anything to try to gain an edge, but I think it's less of an edge than people might think.
I mean, just maybe some raw schematics on some stuff, maybe. But once again, another team could probably have the other team's entire playbook, but unless you execute better than the other team, what have you done there?
Yeah, Peyton Manning's had some good stories about dummy calls and stuff like that, the way that he's fooled defenses. So the Steelers are aware that Cassius Marsh is a Bear, and they're aware that Melvin Ingram obviously is a Chief, and so they're going to mix up some of their verbiage and things like that. And so that's, I think, the big benefit is sometimes the player on that other team, like Marsh with the Bears, kind of knows some of the calls and checks and things like that. But if you change that stuff up, even just once or twice, then you just can't rely on that information if you're Chicago.
I mean, it's a legitimate question Jeff asked. It's just unless you were to get three guys that have been through maybe a situation on a podcast and ask them point blank, all of them will tell you that they were probably needled for information, but why wouldn't you, needle that? But to the degree of what level it helps, it's probably in how the game goes and interpretation from it from there. It's one of those things I think that's kind of impossible to kind of quantify overall.
Right. Yeah, and players have talked about that. I mean, I've heard some stuff, and sometimes they say the teams ask you about it. Sometimes they say they don't really talk to you too much about it. So, again, it's not going to be a talking point coming out of the Bears game. It won't be a talking point coming out of the Chiefs game.
Clayton from Illinois writes in, I have read that the trade from Ingram was a 6th-round pick, but I've also read it was conditional 6th-round pick. I wonder who was reporting it was a 6th-round conditional pick. Oh, it was Steelers Depot. Yeah. And was a pick the Chiefs had gotten from Baltimore. Can you clarify on what the stipulations were on that pick? No. And said that as soon as really the moment that I broke that in the story on Steelers Depot the other day, and until we get, and people are saying that it's listed as conditional because it's a pick from the Ravens. No, that's not the conditions in it. The conditions are something else that we don't know, whether it be snap, playing time, injury related, what have you. And I have reached out to try in an effort to try to get better confirmation on what the conditions are, and I have not heard back from that yet. So odds are pretty good at this point. Now, we're not going to know what the stipulations of the conditions are, but it's not as black and white as it just being a pick from that's coming from the Ravens there, because there's still going to be question as to where the level where that pick comes in at, whether it was the Chiefs' original pick or the Ravens pick, right? So no, you don't call it conditional just because it comes from another team or what they say through. I guess as the kids call it these days, Chiefs through or via the Ravens. If I find out what these stipulations of these conditions are related to Ingram, I will obviously pass them along. But until then, I guarantee you it's all speculation.
Yeah, we do not know. And when we do know, if and when we know, then we'll let you know.
Well put. Bryce Harrison writes in, hi, Dave and Alex. Curious about your mid-season assessment of Kendrick Green. His shortcomings literally were well documented by you guys post-draft. How do you think he's doing overcoming his size? Based on what you've seen, do you feel that KG can become the guy for the next several years? Thanks, Bryce. I think it's still too small sample size to get into can KG be the guy. I will tell you this. He has played a lot better against the run. In the run. In the run
game. I thought he had his best game against the Browns on Cleveland. I thought Pittsburgh's O-line in general had their best run blocking performance against the Browns this season, even better than the Denver game. But as you said, I'm going to let the whole season play out. And usually, unless something grabs you dramatically one way or another, good or bad, just give it more time. We don't have to answer those questions right now, nor does the team. So I'll just let this whole season play out. But certainly taking his lumps, which was not unexpected for being a rookie, playing center, underclassman coming out, all that kind of stuff. But showing improvement, and he'll need to continue to improve going forward. But there has been improvement, and that's a good sign.
I think the biggest and you're still not seeing him reach guys yet, though, right?
Well, he did that once against the Browns. We had a great reach block on the left side there. But as you said, just kind of staying on your feet and just better balance and dealing against some of these power bull rushes is still some of his biggest issues.
You had to. I missed that reach. You had to. How many? How big of a reach was it?
I think it was. I think you had tweeted one of the Brandon Thorne clips. I had a post on it, but I think Brandon had one too, reaching the one tech to his left side there.
Okay. Need to see more of that, and want to watch him anchor a little bit more against some of these better defensive tackles and all that. He'll go up against. You get a pretty good test this week against Eddie, right?
Yeah, and if Hicks plays, that'll be a good test as well if he goes up against him. So, the Bears front's pretty decent.
I think, Bryce, the biggest takeaway at this point is he's better. He's better this past week than he's probably been all season there, and he has been moving in a positive direction there. And I do think I saw he was off the ground less this past week as well, too. I think that stuck out to me on tape as well, too. once again, it is important to remember that this is a kid that didn't play a lot of center at the college level there, and probably getting used to line calls still, and the quickness of the game inside the phone booth there on top of it there. So I don't think anybody should try to be making hard, long predictions about guys like him, about guys like Dan Moore Jr. Yet. I mean, let this thing play out. And we still got another 10 games to go in the regular season here. So that's something that you get into maybe a little bit longer term stuff. I like to usually wait until about 6 games into the second season with a lot of these guys, to be honest with you, because I think that's when if they have started consistently or played a lot of snaps between them, you usually have by the 6th game of the season, of their second season, a lot of those guys should have played by then about the equivalent of a full season at that point.
Yeah, I will say briefly, we talk about the contributions from the rookie class, and it's been important and valuable. How those guys do the rest of the way, though, is going to be really critical.
Sure.
Playing 17-game seasons, preseason, I mean, their bodies are not used to that kind of stuff. So the Steelers season may be in part defined by how well and how well the rookies can avoid the rookie wall, because I don't think we talk about that enough, because that's a big ask for Freiermuth and Harris and Green, and more physically, mentally, just handling that is a tall task.
And look, I mean, if you look at this what the Steelers have asked from these rookies so far this season, based around what you probably see around the rest of the league, and I haven't gone team for team to try to compare it, but the first 2 draft picks, obviously, in Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth. Huge roles in the offense now, and really Freiermuth really growing on a weekly basis there. So there's that. Dan Moore Jr. I mean, that guy's been logging important snaps for weeks now, as has obviously Kendrick Green. I mean, so your top 4 draft picks are really getting asked a lot, cumulatively, and I bet compared to the rest of the NFL, that's high. And then you look at guys like, the leftover class, right? Norwood, Loudermilk, we talked about earlier in the show there. These guys
Harvin,
are who? Oh yeah, obviously, and Presley Harvin, the third, your punter as well too. I mean, you're getting a lot of contributions and moving more positive every week as this group as a whole. So that speaks volumes in itself. And I think you're right to say what's going to happen when the proverbial, rookie wall hits, if you will. How real is it, and what kind of impact will it have on these guys getting the large amount of snaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's real. It's tough. Every guy's different, and some guys weather the storm better than others. But, I mean, you can't have any of those guys hit the rookie wall. I mean, if any of those guys just start to really struggle, it's going to greatly impact your offense, especially if it's Harris or one of the offensive linemen. So just how they handle that collectively, and how Pittsburgh handles that, tries to manage snap counts for Harris and Freiermuth. Obviously, really can't manage snap counts for Green and Moore. But to me, that's an underrated, overlooked factor the rest of the season.
Who has progressed better, or Green or Moore?
I think Green has, in the sense that Moore got off to a better start, and Green got off to a worse start. So there was more of an opportunity, I guess, in a sense, for Green to progress, if that makes sense.
And you're talking about the jump of second year guys. I don't think Claypool's made the jump yet that they would have liked to seen out of him so far. And who else is maybe another second year guy?
Highsmith and Dotson.
I think Dotson's grown. I don't know if he has become maybe what the level that I was kind of maybe envisioning, but I'm not disappointed with him. I'm just saying that maybe he hasn't become maybe that guy that I thought he could by now just yet.
How would you rank the growth of those 3 second-year guys in terms of the most growth, the biggest jump, to the least, between Highsmith, Dotson, and Claypool?
I would go Highsmith, Dotson, and Claypool.
Okay, so Highsmith the most growth, to Claypool the least growth. I agree with you. That's how I would order them as well.
I mean, and once again, what the expectations for Claypool should have been more explosive plays down the field, contested catches by now. I think that's where he lacks the most, obviously.
Right. Now, some people will, I think, take issue with the Highsmith comment there because they'll look at it and say the dude has a sack in half of the season, 4 quarterback hits, and he hasn't put up the big numbers. So I think, and to some degree that's fair. I think he's better than the stats indicate, but obviously you do want to see some more sacks, and that sack and half all came in one game as well. So just to play devil's advocate there.
I just think on a snap-by-snap basis, you are seeing some things with Highsmith.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it would be Dotson and then Clay. Look, if they could get those guys to start really getting in the groove right now and making, look, they're 4-3 right now, right? I mean,
right. Yeah. I mean that's...
more positive would come out of jumps, obviously out of guys like that. And you got two games against teams in the Bears and the Lions where it sets up perfectly for this. To maybe to see some more jumps in guys like that where they can potentially hugely impact games against the Bears and Lions. And, we just talked a little bit about Gentry too. Technically, couldn't you quantify Gentry as a second-year guy right now because of how his second season was wiped out so quickly after 50 snaps or whatever? 20? No, it was 20 snaps, I think.
Yeah, it was 50 snaps his rookie year, I think. So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, the guy's barely played his first 2 seasons. So from a snap count standpoint, obviously, all those guys we just talked about, Claypool through the rookies, have played more than Zach Gentry. So yeah, I think you can make that case.
Look, boiling this thing back down. This is a 4-3 team right now, and they probably didn't get to, or they obviously didn't get to the 4-3 the way I predicted they would be at 4-3 at this point. I don't think you envision the 4-3 going the way the 4-3 is now. But as we talked, if this team was able to get past Cleveland, which they did, this thing now sets up for them to be 6-3. And I think if they're not 6-3 after their next 2 games, I think there's reason for disappointment at that point. I guess in so many words, there is reason for Steeler fans to be optimistic right now about this team heading into this Monday night game and moving forward into the next 2 weeks as well too. Does the how matter more than the doing it in the next 2 weeks against Bears and Lions? Because we both agree that they should win these next 2 games, and it would be a huge disappointment if they don't. Does it matter the how if they do indeed get these next 2 wins?
Obviously, the goal is to win however you can win, but I think it will matter a little bit more because these are teams you should beat and beat relatively comfortably. Now, I don't expect 40-0 wins here because it's the NFL and those things are a rarity, but if you want to really feel like this is a team that can contend against some of the top teams in a very tough AFC North, you want to feel like you can really handle and take care of some of the worst teams in football.
All right, so we are expecting them to win this next 2 games, right? And be 6-3, and
sure.
What? And who knows what's going to happen with Tua? And boy, if you could get that guy back, a second half and still see, on upward trend there, it would be a huge boost going into the second half of that season. All right, Alex, I think we've hit all the questions here that we have. Anything else you'd like to add as we ride off into this weekend?
Nope, I think it's everything. Again, we'll be back on Monday, and a reminder, just our schedule for next week will have our Monday morning show here to still preview the Bears game, and then be back on Tuesday morning for probably a shorter show to recap what happened in the Week 9 game between Pittsburgh and Chicago, and then we'll be back on Friday as well, of course.
Absolutely. So we're going to be moving fast once we hit to hit Monday moving forward there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. If you have an email question, we like hearing from regular and new listeners alike, and first-time emailers, go to you can send it to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, people donate all the time and want to know how they can donate, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar and we would appreciate that. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, and for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. That's been very popular since we instituted that. We also hope to have maybe a minor update related to some site functionality. Easy for me to say that word, but maybe as early as next week as well too. So Alex, appreciate it. A lot of great content coming on the site the remainder of the weekend on SteelersDepot.com. We hope you get by and check all that out as well, too. So in the meantime, until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.